The mysterious disappearance of Flight 19, lost in a Bermuda Triangle of war. Have you ever heard voices coming through static that didn't belong to the living? December 5th, 1945. 2:10 p.m. 5 U.S. Navy bombers, codename Flight 19, soared into the Florida sky from Fort Lauderdale. A routine training mission, clear weather, experienced pilots. Nothing could go wrong. Except everything did. It began with silence. Then, "Can't see land. We seem to be off course." That was the last normal sentence. After that, chaos, panic, and then nothing. They vanished. No wreckage, no bodies, only ghostly echoes on the radio and questions no one could answer. The Bermuda Triangle had claimed its next victims. But what if I told you? The triangle wasn't just water and waves. What if it held something else? Let me take you back. The men of Flight 19 weren't rookies. Most were seasoned. Their leader, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, had over 2,500 flying hours, confident, respected, the kind of man others followed without question. But that afternoon, he sounded like a man swallowed by fear. Everything looked strange, even the ocean. Strange? The ocean? He'd flown it 100 times. What was different? The control tower grew concerned. "Can you identify your location?" Taylor hesitated. "We don't know where we are. Everything is wrong. Even the compass." Even the compass? That's where things start to twist. In every Flight 19 report since, survivors of other missions have described something similar when flying near the triangle: compasses spinning, clouds forming out of nowhere, radio static that sounded almost like whispers. At first, people blamed the weather, then pilot error. But pilots don't forget how to fly in a clear sky. And that's what makes Flight 19 more than just a missing plane story. Because here's the truth. Flight 19 didn't vanish like a normal disappearance. They radioed, they panicked, they screamed. And then they were gone. Vanished mid-sentence, like something reached out and snatched them from the sky. The Navy launched the largest air and sea search in U.S. history. They found nothing, not a single shred, no floating debris, no oil slicks, no parachutes, just an ocean that swallowed everything and gave nothing back. Even more chilling? The rescue plane sent to find them, a massive PBM Mariner, exploded mid-air 20 minutes after takeoff. 13 more men, gone. That wasn't coincidence. That was something else. Now here's where it gets even stranger. In 1991, a retired air traffic controller named Albert Jennings, a man who worked Fort Lauderdale's tower the day of the disappearance, confessed something to a friend on his deathbed. He claimed he heard a final radio signal that was never logged, never shared, never meant to be heard by anyone outside the military. The words, "They're not from here. They're pulling us in." Read that again. "They're not from here." Jennings said his superior ordered him to destroy the tape immediately, that it never happened. But he remembered the voice. Not frightened, but resigned. As if the pilot knew whatever was pulling them wasn't something he could fight. And this is where it starts to twist into something darker. You've probably heard about the Bermuda Triangle before. Planes vanish, boats disappear. But what if it isn't just about navigation errors? What if there's something there? Let's look at something eerie. During World War I, British and German pilots reported seeing lights hovering over battlefields. Some described strange aircraft with no propellers, moving silently, faster than anything man-made. They called them Foo Fighters. At the time, no one could explain them. Now ask yourself, what if Flight 19 didn't vanish randomly? What if they flew into something that's always been there? Something watching, waiting, choosing? Because here's the kicker. Right before Taylor's last transmission cut off, The control tower tried to redirect him. "We're trying to locate you. Turn due west." Taylor replied, "We can't make out anything. We seem to be entering white water. Nothing looks right." White water? The sky was blue that day, the ocean calm. But Taylor said it was white, like a veil was dropping, or something was changing around them. I want you to picture this. You're in the cockpit. Everything starts to flicker. The ocean below turns pale and cloudy, like milk. Your compass is spinning. The radios are whispering things you can't understand, and then your instruments die. The sun disappears. And you feel it. Not a crash, not an explosion, but a pull, like you're being yanked into something you can't see, something that doesn't belong in this world. Maybe it's a wormhole. Maybe it's a rip in time. Maybe it's something that watches from above, or below, or someplace in between. But whatever it is, it doesn't let you go. And the terrifying part? It chooses who to take. Do you think it's just science fiction? Then explain why dozens of other aircraft have vanished in the exact same area. Same weather, same calm skies, same radio signal. Can't see anything? Compass not working? Always the same. As if they're all telling the same story, just in different voices, different years. Now you might be wondering, is there any proof? Well, in part 2, you'll hear chilling eyewitness accounts. Men who say they saw Flight 19 in the clouds, years after it disappeared. You'll hear the story of the storm that wasn't a storm, the lights in the sky that shouldn't have been there, the voices, recorded on open radio frequencies, decades later. But for now, I'll leave you with this. If 5 planes could vanish into thin air in the middle of a routine mission, with no warning, no debris, no reason, what's really out there? And if it chooses again, will we even know? The ocean was silent, but the radios weren't. 3 days after Flight 19 disappeared, a ham radio operator in Key Largo reported something strange. At exactly 3:27 a.m., his receiver lit up with a burst of static, followed by a voice. "It's too bright. The clouds are glowing." He froze. The voice was garbled, thin, distant, but it sounded like a man in a cockpit trying to stay calm while everything around him unraveled. He called the Navy. They laughed, but he recorded it. And even today, that tape is archived under a single label: Unidentified Transmission. FL-19. The voice has never been matched to any known pilot. Not then. Not since. Let's go back to the moment it all began. The training mission. Flight 19 was composed of 5 Avenger torpedo bombers. They were built for war. Big, loud, slow, but reliable. That day they carried no live ammo, just navigation orders. A standard route, east over the Atlantic, then north, then back to base. Simple, until it wasn't. At 3:15 p.m., Lieutenant Taylor radioed in. "Both my compasses are out. I'm trying to find Fort Lauderdale. I'm over land, but it's broken. I'm sure I'm in the Keys." But the Keys were behind him, not below. That meant he was flying in the wrong direction. Control tried to reroute him. He kept saying the same thing. Everything looks strange. Even the ocean doesn't look right. That's the part that keeps coming up. The ocean doesn't look right. You see, in multiple Bermuda Triangle disappearances, witnesses often report bizarre environmental changes. Waters that turn white, skies that dim unnaturally, clouds that don't move. One pilot who flew over the area years later described a phenomenon he couldn't explain. He said, "It was like flying into a dream. The sky was colorless, the sun vanished, my instruments failed. I saw nothing, no horizon, no sea, no sky, just a white void." That man turned around. Flight 19 didn't. And here's the chilling thing. Hours after their final transmission, a commercial freighter passing through the triangle reported seeing 5 aircraft flying in formation, low across the water. No markings, no sound. Their lights blinked, then vanished. The ship's captain radioed the sighting. But no planes were logged in the area, and Flight 19 was already gone. There's more. During a storm 2 weeks later, a private pilot flying to Nassau reported radio interference, followed by a brief, terrifying sound. It only lasted 2 seconds. But when he landed, he replayed the recording. A voice whispered, "We're not dead." Creepy, right? Some say it was a hoax. Others believe it was real, that Flight 19 was trying to come back from somewhere else. What makes this all stranger is what happened in 1986. That year, a deep-sea exploration team scanning the Atlantic floor found something strange. It wasn't a wreck, it was a signal, a ping, repeating, every 6.4 seconds. But it didn't match any known sonar beacon. The Navy dismissed it, but the scientists who heard it said it was rhythmic, intentional, almost like Morse code. And when they triangulated the signal, it led them to the exact last known coordinates of Flight 19. Still think this is just coincidence? Let's rewind. In 1945, after Flight 19 disappeared, Navy divers were sent into the Triangle. Not to find debris, but to investigate something else. Classified reports, declassified decades later, revealed they were chasing unidentified aerial phenomena, what we now call UAPs. One diver later said, "They didn't tell us what to expect, but we weren't there to find planes. We were looking for something that moved." When asked to clarify, he refused, only saying, "We saw lights beneath the surface." They weren't ours. Lights beneath the sea, not aircraft, not reflections. Lights, moving, watching. Back to Flight 19, there's a detail often left out of public reports. Taylor's voice, near the end, changed. It went from steady to slow, almost mechanical. He said, "Something is coming. We're going into the cloud. It's not a storm." Then static. Then silence. But here's the thing. Meteorologists confirmed there were no storm systems in the area that day. None. Clear skies, calm seas, no radar anomalies. So, what did Taylor see? What was that cloud? And why did it stop 5 aircraft from ever returning? Let me share one more detail. A woman named Eleanor Hawke, now in her 90s, claimed she saw something unusual that day. She lived on the coast of Bimini, a small island just on the edge of the Bermuda Triangle. She said, "At exactly 3:40 p.m., I looked up and saw a formation of planes, but they weren't like any I'd ever seen. They shimmered, like heat waves in the sky, then they vanished." She wrote it in her journal. Local authorities dismissed it, but she kept the page. And guess what? She drew the planes, and they were Avengers, 5 of them, in perfect formation, flying into nothing. So what does this all mean? Maybe Flight 19 didn't crash. Maybe they didn't run out of fuel. Maybe they flew into something else, something that exists between places, a fold in space, a pocket in time, a doorway, and maybe, just maybe, it's still open, because in the years since, more pilots have gone missing in that exact region, always with the same symptoms: compass failure, loss of communication, visual distortion, always the same ending: nothing. If you think this is just spooky folklore, ask yourself, how do 5 trained pilots flying in perfect weather simply vanish, without a single trace? No wreckage, no bodies, no distress beacon, just silence. And a warning. A warning buried in forgotten reports, in radio signals that shouldn't exist, in whispers through static. We're not dead. Not everyone vanished. That's the part they don't tell you. There was one man who knew something, and kept it buried for decades. His name was Sergeant William C. Powers, A ground technician stationed at Fort Lauderdale on the day Flight 19 vanished. He wasn't supposed to be part of the mission, but he was there when the compasses went crazy, and he heard it. He heard everything. Years later, in a VA hospital in Ohio, he told a nurse something strange. He was dying, his mind was slipping, but his voice was clear when he said, "They didn't crash, they were taken." The nurse thought he was hallucinating, until he said something she never forgot. "They called for me. I heard them, through the static." That night, he died. But before he went, he left behind something chilling. A cassette tape, unlabeled, dusty, hidden in a shoebox. The nurse kept it for years. She never listened. Until one night, after a dream she couldn't explain, she played the tape. There was only one thing on it. A man's voice, trembling, whispering, "We were not supposed to be there." Time bent, and then it snapped. Rewind to 1945. Sergeant Powers had been in the radio tower when the transmissions from Flight 19 began going haywire. At first he thought it was just signal drift. Then, something happened. A second signal came through. Not from the planes, from somewhere else. He wrote in his personal journal. An unknown frequency interrupted our line, a low, humming pulse, followed by a high-pitched tone. None of our techs could identify it. It wasn't interference. It was deliberate. He described the sensation like being watched through the wires. A week later, a letter arrived. Unsigned, no return address, military envelope, inside one sentence, typed in all caps. "Stop talking about the second signal." He never mentioned it again, not to anyone, until that final whisper in the hospital. But there's more. In 1972, a retired Navy pilot named Calvin Briggs came forward anonymously in an old interview series about unexplained aerial events. He was stationed near Bermuda. He claimed that, in late December 1945, his patrol detected a radar anomaly, a looping echo over open water. They scrambled to investigate, but what they saw didn't make sense. Briggs said, "We saw 5 aircraft, Avenger bombers. Formation was perfect, but they shimmered, like heat mirage. They didn't cast shadows. They flew silently, like ghosts." He tried to get closer, but when he approached, they vanished, all 5. No dive, no scatter, just gone. Briggs said, "I looked to my co-pilot. He was pale. He whispered, 'We're not alone out here.' And I believed him." Back to Powers. Before his death, he confided in a fellow veteran, a man named Elias Dorn, a radar tech who served with him. Dorn, now in his 90s, said something that still echoes. Powers knew they were alive, for a time. He believed they were caught in something we couldn't understand. A tear in the sky. Dorn described Powers as obsessed with temporal interference. Powers believed there were places, hidden places, where time folds, slows, or loops. And Flight 19? They'd entered one. Sounds impossible? Then explain this. In 1997, a salvage team searching for a downed freighter stumbled upon an underwater cave, 200 feet below the triangle. Inside, fragments of metal, burnished, old but not corroded. One piece had a serial number, faded but readable, FT117. That was one of the aircraft in Flight 19. But here's the problem. The metal hadn't aged. It looked recent, no signs of rust, no biological growth, as if it hadn't been underwater for decades, as if it had just arrived. The team sent photos to the Navy. A week later, they were ordered to cease operations. The site was marked Military Zone. The photos? Disappeared. One diver leaked a copy before it vanished. It shows a metallic panel, warped at the edges, with burn marks in the shape of fingers, human fingers. as if someone had tried to claw their way out. There's something else Powers left behind, a map, drawn by hand, circles, arrows, a line of coordinates running diagonally across the Atlantic. At one intersection, he scrawled 2 words: the breach. Nobody knows what it means. Some say he was imagining things. But others, experts in geomagnetic fields, say that point is where multiple magnetic anomalies overlap. It's like the perfect storm of energy, gravity, and something else, something not natural. So where does that leave us? If Powers was right, then Flight 19 didn't just vanish. They crossed a threshold. They went somewhere else. Some believe they're stuck in a time loop, reliving the same 90 minutes forever. Others think they were pulled into another dimension, a mirror world where time fractures. And then there's a theory few dare to whisper. They were taken by something intelligent, something watching. And if that's true, Powers may not have been the only one who heard them, because today, even now, strange signals are still reported. Ham radios in the Florida Keys, picking up ghost voices, blips of Morse code where there should be silence. And in one recording, a faint, distant voice says, FT-117, holding formation, waiting for orders. As if they're still flying, still following protocol, still trying to come home. So what do you believe? Was Sergeant Powers delusional? Or did he witness the truth and die trying to hide it? You decide. But whatever happened out there isn't over. Darkness doesn't always come from above. Sometimes it pulses through wires. December 2023. A retired naval communications analyst named Marcus Nolan was fiddling with an old shortwave receiver in his garage. It was a hobby he'd taken up after decades decoding Cold War transmissions. Static, echoes, intercepts. That was his world. That night the receiver caught something. A low hum, a clicking pattern, then a voice. Bravo 1 to Fox Leader. Situation unstable. Instruments failing. Marcus froze. The cadence, the language, the call signs, they were out of date. Long, obsolete. He recorded everything. 34 seconds of distorted audio that sent a chill through his spine. But one line stood out. We are not alone. There's something above us. No, it's everywhere. He contacted a friend, a former NSA linguist. They ran voice analysis. The result? The vocal frequency matched a file from 1945. The voice was identical to Lieutenant Charles Taylor, the commander of Flight 19. But how? How could a man who disappeared in 1945 be broadcasting in 2023? The signal was traced to the open waters, 70 miles off the coast of Miami. A no-man's land of currents and clouds. The place sailors say swallows sound. And then, they found something. A floating buoy, cracked in half, tangled in seaweed. Inside, a transmitter. But not just any transmitter. A World War II-era UHF unit. Still powered, still pulsing. That's impossible. The battery type it used hasn't existed since the 50s. And yet, it was transmitting. The signal? The same message on repeat. Bravo 1 to Fox Leader. Situation unstable. That same week, 3 different pleasure boats reported flickering lights in the sky above the same coordinates. Blue orbs, hovering, silent. Then disappeared. The Coast Guard dismissed it as flare reflections. But one fisherman, aged 67, swore he saw planes, old bombers, flying just beneath the cloud line. They didn't belong in this world, he whispered to a reporter. They shimmered, like they were struggling to stay visible. But this isn't new. In 1965, during a classified sonar scan of the Atlantic Ridge, a military, vessel picked up what was described as metallic interference, 300 feet beneath the surface. The sonar image showed something angular, winged. A diver was sent down. What he saw was never officially reported. But his personal notes, leaked in 1999, paint a chilling picture. It was an aircraft, intact, paint barely worn, no barnacles, marked FT-28. I looked inside, no bones, no gear, just an old flight log, pages still dry. Open to December 5th, 1945. That diver vanished 2 months later. No trace. Here's where it gets worse. A U.S. Navy research team was assigned to reinvestigate Flight 19 in 1991. Declassified logs reveal they discovered anomalous electromagnetic readings near the Bahamas. One reading showed a perfect triangle of distortion, rotating slowly as if guarding something. When a drone was dropped in, it disappeared. No signal, no debris. Gone. The Navy shut down the investigation. All footage classified. Personnel reassigned. Project codename, Blue Echo. But some evidence slipped through. A fragment of audio, released by a whistleblower in 2004, captured this. "We see the planes, 5 of them. They're flying, but not moving forward, like caught in a loop." Another voice. "Time is wrong. The stars aren't where they should be." And then, static, followed by one last whisper. "This is Flight 19, requesting permission to land. Please respond." How can a voice be heard decades after its source vanished? How can planes remain unaged beneath salt water? And why do the same coordinates keep calling out? Because something, or someone, is still there, trapped, repeating, begging to be noticed. In 2015, a private expedition sent a submersible drone deep into a canyon trench within the triangle. It found something. Not just wreckage, a structure, hexagonal, metallic, not of human design. The drone malfunctioned, footage scrambled, but one frame, one single image, survived. A wall, smooth, covered in symbols, and at the center, 5 emblems, 5 identical aircraft silhouettes. Flight 19? Nobody can say for certain. The Navy won't comment. The FAA denies all. But these voices, these signals, they don't lie. Flight 19 isn't just a mystery. It's a message. Something is echoing through time, a warning, a plea, or an invitation. And Marcus Nolan, the man who captured the voice? He disappeared 3 weeks later, his home ransacked, only one thing missing, the tape. But his neighbor heard something strange before he vanished. Through the wall, late one night. "Fox leader to base, conditions worsening, can't hold altitude." What would you do if the past knocked on your radio? If ghosts flew overhead? If the sky whispered your name? Think about it. He arrived at the Coast Guard station barefoot, his face cracked with salt and sun, his eyes unfocused, hollow. He called himself William Crane. No ID, no ship logs, just a soaked flight jacket, marked Navy Flight 19. At first they thought it was a prank, a costume, some drunk vagrant washed ashore, until he said the name, Taylor, Lieutenant Charles Taylor. He told me to warn you. Silence, then laughter. But it didn't last long. William Crane spoke calmly, slowly, as if each word were floating up through decades of confusion. I walked into the sky and came back holding time in my hands. He was taken to a holding cell, interviewed. The transcript, never officially released, was leaked by a clerk years later, and what it describes is impossible. Crane said he was a diver, not military, a private adventurer. He'd gone looking for Atlantis, but what he found wasn't buried beneath the sea. It was hanging in the air. He told the agents he'd been diving near the same coordinates where Flight 19 disappeared when the water changed. It became warm, humming, vibrating like it was breathing. Then everything turned white and silent. He described standing in the middle of an endless ocean, but dry, as if time had paused, wrapped around him like a blanket. He looked up and saw 5 planes, suspended, unmoving, like moths frozen in amber. He floated toward them, and the instant he touched the wing of one, he wasn't alone anymore. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's eyes opened, not with surprise, but recognition. "He looked at me," Crane said, "as if I had taken too long." And then came the voice, not through ears, but through his skull, a single sentence. "Tell them time is broken." Crane remembered nothing else. He woke up on the beach 3 days later. No memory of how he got there, no wounds, no hunger, but in his hand was a compass, rustless, polished, still spinning, and inside the lid, etched in perfect script, December 5, 1945, return not guaranteed. Authorities dismissed the story. They said Crane was dehydrated, hallucinating. But Crane vanished that night from the hospital. No cameras, no trace, only a note scribbled in salt on the window. "We are still flying." Here's the twist. An old naval archivist, hearing the story, pulled out a dusty report from 1952. It described a man, a pilot, found in Brazil. No ID, but he spoke English, and wore a jacket marked Flight 19. When questioned, he simply said, "We didn't crash. We crossed over." What is crossing over? A portal? A temporal fold? A fracture in reality? Every few years, someone else reports seeing something similar. Lights circling in triangular formation, an ocean that glows, a voice that whispers through the fog. Fox leader to base, request guidance. And that compass Crane carried? It's now in the possession of a private collector, sealed in glass, still spinning. No magnets, no tricks, just movement. Eternal, circular, as if time itself is searching for home. So ask yourself, what if Flight 19 never crashed? What if they found something they weren't meant to see? What if they're still flying? Just not in our world? It started with a signal, not a voice, not words, just static. But inside that static, something pulsed, like a heartbeat, faint, almost rhythmic. 3 naval operators heard it that night. 2 brushed it off. But the third? He froze. Because in that pattern, he recognized Morse code. DOIC5, the same date. Flight 19 vanished, but the year in the message, 2044, a date that hadn't happened yet. The technician ran it through spectrum analyzers, frequency filters, everything. No source. The transmission hadn't come from sea, or air, or space. It came from above the facility itself, like a scream that never traveled. Just arrived. That same night, the technician went missing. All that was found in his bunk was a sheet of paper. A map. The Bermuda Triangle, but misshapen. More like a spiral. And in the center, in shaky handwriting, "They never left. We're just looking in the wrong time." Elsewhere, 100 miles off the Florida coast, a fishing vessel reported seeing old planes in formation overhead. 5 of them. Paint chipped, lights flickering, flying low, steady, and completely silent. The fishermen said they waved at one plane. A man inside the cockpit looked directly at them. But his eyes weren't focused. They were glowing. Not like a reflection, like there was something inside him, watching through him. 3 hours later, the boat was found drifting, crew missing. Only one recording remained, saved on a satellite phone left on deck. It was just 10 seconds. But it was enough. A voice, distorted, crackling, almost drowned in static, Fox leader. Negative fuel. Instrument spinning. What year is it? Then silence. Then screaming, but not human. In the days that followed, other sightings emerged. Tourists on a yacht saw the ocean ripple upward. Not splash, ripple, like the sky was a ceiling of water being stirred. And from it, figures emerged, silhouettes of men in aviator caps, drifting downward in slow motion. But when they tried to film it, their phones glitched, screens cracked, batteries drained. All they captured was a split-second image. 5 shadows, in the clouds, flying upside down. Military radar across the Atlantic began picking up what they called echo flights. No heat signatures, no engines, just pings, 5 of them, always flying in a spiral, always vanishing the moment fighter jets tried to intercept. And every time, radio towers across the coastline pulsed with interference. Inside the static, one phrase kept repeating, "Return not guaranteed." A civilian weather balloon caught something too. Its camera, set to auto-capture every 10 seconds, snapped an image no one could explain. Above the clouds, a black triangle. Not a UFO. A tear. A rip in the sky, like someone had peeled reality open, and inside it, 5 aircraft. Still. Waiting. Watching. The government said it was a data artifact, a glitch, but the scientist who released it lost her job the next day. She left only one message on her blog. Flight 19 is not a ghost story. It's a warning. They're trying to come back, but they're not the same anymore. So here's the question, Em. What happens when time bends? What if it loops, traps, warps? What if Flight 19 never disappeared, but was rerouted into a place where physics don't obey our rules? And worse, what if that place is starting to open back up? The folder had no name, just a thin red band around it, tightly sealed, stamped, classified, Project Siren. Inside, fragments, a torn map with spiral notations, a photo of 5 aircraft circling over what looked like an empty ocean, and a typed note, barely legible under the smear of dried salt. They don't transmit radio anymore. They transmit memory. That phrase puzzled everyone who read it, until a scientist, Dr. Ren Yi, radar analyst with the Naval Intelligence Command, connected the dots. She'd been studying cognitive signal bleed, transmissions that didn't affect machines, but minds. Operators exposed to the spiral zone, a 50-mile patch of open water, began reporting dreams. The same dreams. A cockpit filled with water, a voice whispering coordinates backwards, and the overwhelming urge to turn left, even when there's no sky to turn into. Dr. Yi wasn't superstitious, until it happened to her. One night she dreamt she was standing on the wing of an Avenger plane, mid-flight. She looked down and saw herself, not a reflection. Herself in uniform, staring back, eyes closed, hands gripping controls that were no longer attached to anything. And in the distance, 5 other planes flying in formation, with no pilots, just shadows. She woke up screaming, and worse, on her arm were numbers written in black ink, not from a pen, not from anything human, just numbers. 19.12, 1945, 0217, Zulu. No one else saw them. No camera picked them up. But she felt them burn, like a timestamp embedded inside her. She quit her post the next day, but not before leaving behind a recording, encrypted but leaked by someone anonymous. In it, her voice trembles. They're trying to remember something, not who they are, but what they saw. Across the ocean, another piece of the puzzle appeared. A diver in Bermuda, exploring a shipwreck, discovered an object that didn't belong. An aircraft altimeter, pristine, not rusted, etched with FT-28. That was Taylor's plane. And next to it, a waterproof notebook, wrapped in oilskin. It had one entry. We're flying in circles. Compass is useless. Clouds look like glass. Saw a second sun in the water. Please, tell them we're still up here. The diver who found it vanished 2 weeks later. Only his gear was recovered. The altimeter was gone. Meanwhile, back in Florida, a private collector purchased a strange antique from a junk shop, a broken aircraft radio. But when he powered it up, it played a voice, over and over. Fox leader to base. Request position. We can't find land. Everything looks wrong. Sky feels inverted. Then the voice cuts. And the background noise? Not static. It's breathing, slow, inhuman, deep enough to shake glass. No one believes these stories when they hear them, until it happens to them. One tourist's drone captured a 5-second video over the water, showing a shadow flying below the waves. The shape was unmistakable. A World War II fighter, intact, moving at 200 knots, underwater, and just before the video cut out. The drone captured something else, a hand reaching up from the surface, with wings reflected in its eyes. And here's what no one wants to admit. The Bermuda Triangle isn't a place, it's an event, an ongoing phenomenon that doesn't obey time, physics, or logic, a loop, a breach, a message, repeating until someone finally listens. And Flight 19? They're not ghosts, they're memories, encoded in space, bleeding through the cracks, trying to tell us something. So what's the theory? That the Bermuda Triangle is a temporal echo chamber? That these aircraft hit a seam in reality and got stuck mid-broadcast? Or worse, that they saw something they weren't meant to, and now they're forever bound to replay the moment? They said don't go back. But curiosity is louder than caution. Dr. Mara Klein didn't just study the Bermuda Triangle, she felt it. Her grandfather, rear gunner on one of the planes that vanished. Her father, a military archivist who spent his life chasing rumors. And her? She was going in. They called it Project Echo Spiral, a Black Ops mission to re-enter the region with modern tech, quantum sensors, and cognitive backup teams. They didn't just want to map the area, they wanted to record what it thinks. That's right, they no longer believed the triangle was just a space. It was acting more like a mind, a place that remembers, reacts, repeats. Mara boarded the vessel Asphodel, outfitted with multi-layer scanners, underwater lidar, drone pods, and something new, a device called the resonator, designed to match frequencies between human thought and spatial anomalies. In simpler terms, they were going to talk to the triangle. It started on day 2. The sea changed, not in color, not in motion, but in feeling. Crew stopped sleeping. Birds stopped appearing. The sky dimmed even at noon. One sailor reported hearing a propeller when no aircraft was near. Another, the ship's cook, dropped a pan when he opened the freezer and saw a man staring back from inside. Not dead, not alive, just watching, then vanishing. At 0200, the resonator activated on its own. Mara rushed in. The waveform display, normally a slow pulse, began spiraling violently. Then, a burst of sound. Voices. Fox leader. Negative fuel. Can't see sun. Compass broken. Then another voice. They're watching us from the other side. We were never supposed to come back. Then silence, followed by one chilling word, spoken clearly, not a recording. Klein. It said her name. She stepped outside to breathe. The sky? Wrong. Not night, not day, just static gray, like an unrendered video game. And on the horizon, 5 shadows, hovering. She grabbed her cameras, but nothing showed on playback. Still, she knew. They were waiting. On day 4, the drones returned. One was torn in half. The other had footage. It showed the sea split like glass, revealing an inverted sky beneath. Inside that false sky, 5 planes circling, then vanishing like ink in water. Frame by frame. Mara noticed something else. Every time a plane flickered out of sight, the ocean above it rippled, like something from the other side was trying to pull through. By now the crew was cracking. One tried to jump into the water. He shouted, "I can see land down there. I hear music." Another refused to eat, said the food smelled like old fuel and radio signals. One man aged 20 years in a single night. His teeth fell out. His hair turned white. And all he could whisper was, "They're looping. But it's not their loop anymore. It's ours now." Back in the resonator chamber, Mara initiated the pulse manually. The screen flashed, showing one word, "Remember." Then a location, 28 degrees north, 77 degrees west. December 5th, 1945, 2:10 Zulu. The exact time and place Flight 19 vanished. But this wasn't a memory. It was a summoning. A request. And here's the terrifying part. If the triangle isn't just showing us the past, if it's pulling people back, then maybe Flight 19 never disappeared at all. Maybe they're still flying, but not on their own. Maybe something else is piloting their return. And if we keep listening, we might just answer a call we can't hang up. At 28 degrees north, 77 degrees west. The ocean went silent. Not just sound, not just wind. Everything gone. Like someone had pressed mute on the world, the asphodel floated beneath a sky that didn't move. No stars, no clouds, just a gray canvas. Then the water began to change, not ripple, pulse, like something underneath was breathing. And that's when Mara saw it. In the distance, an object, bobbing just above the surface. At first she thought it was debris. Then she saw the markings. FT-117, one of Flight 19's Avengers. It was pristine, as if it had just landed. No rust, no algae, no time. She boarded the small inflatable and paddled closer. The water below was unnaturally clear, and beneath her she could see other planes. Rows of them, hundreds, not just World War II, jets, drones, helicopters, balloons, some not even invented yet, resting on a seabed made of metal, not rock, like a graveyard of lost sky. She reached the plane. Inside, a single seat, empty, no pilot, no blood, just a flight log. She opened it, only one line scratched in violently with a red grease pencil. "We never turned." The world did. Back on the asphodel, panic had spread. The ship's clocks were spinning backward. People swore they were forgetting their own names. One sailor cried when he saw his reflection, said it wasn't him, said it was his great-grandfather. Mara had to act. She went below deck, into the resonator room. It was glowing. Not flickering, glowing, like it was being powered from somewhere else. She stepped forward, and her shadow split in two. The resonator activated. A map appeared, but it wasn't of Earth. It looked like a spiral, within a spiral, made of light. In the center, a blinking dot, then coordinates, same as before, same time. But this time, a second phrase emerged. "Cabin found." She grabbed the headset, syncing with the resonator feed. Suddenly her mind wasn't hers. She saw a forest, tropical, misty, but inside, a wooden cabin, alone. Inside that, a radio, still on. Crackling. Then a voice. "Fox leader reporting. We can't find the coast. Sun's gone, but we hear knocking inside the hull." Then laughter. Not from the pilot. Something behind him. Something older. Mara collapsed. When she woke, she was holding something. A medal. Navy issued. With one word scratched into the back. Escape. Only when she looked around. The asphodel was gone. She was floating in the middle of nothing. No ship, no sea, just water that looked like sky, and sky that looked like ice, and faintly, above her, 5 shadows circling. You may think this is fiction, but ask yourself, how do 5 planes vanish in daylight, with perfect weather and never get found? Not one body, not one engine, not one piece of scrap metal, just gone. And now, they're coming back. Piece by piece. But they're not coming back alone. There's a moment, just before madness, when your senses lie to you. The air tastes like metal. The sky hums like it's watching. And your memories shift. Mara was no longer floating. She was falling, but not through air, through time. The sky split, not with lightning, with memory, and from that rupture she saw things she couldn't comprehend. A blimp on fire, hovering above an ocean of ice. A soldier in 1800s garb, pointing a flintlock at nothing. A child, mouthing words silently on a beach that didn't exist. And in every vision, the planes. Flight 19, always circling, never landing, like vultures, or guardians, or prisoners. She landed, if you can call it that, on a beach made of metal and bones. In front of her, the cabin. Exactly as seen in the vision. Wooden, rotten, windows black, but flickering with radio light inside. She stepped in. The smell? Jet fuel and old paper. Inside was the logbook room. Hundreds of journals, some labeled in English, others in languages she didn't recognize. All dated December 5th, 1945. Over and over, repeating. Some had entries like, "We turned east, but the ocean flipped." I saw myself waving at me from the sky. Someone is using our voices. And then, one written in her own handwriting. But she hadn't written it. Not yet. It read, "The fracture is not in the sea, it's in us, and it's already spreading." The radio crackled, static, then a woman's voice. "Mara, you must leave." Then a man's voice. "She can't. She's already part of it." Then silence. Then footsteps, behind her. She spun. Nothing. But the journal was gone. Replaced with a photo. A black and white image of Flight 19. But something was wrong. The 5th plane, FT-28, had a pilot staring directly at the camera. Not Taylor. It was her. She ran outside, but the beach was gone. Now she stood in the cockpit of FT-28, dials spinning, fuel vanishing, compass dancing like a spider. Outside the canopy, pure cloud. Inside the cabin, the other 4 planes, flying in formation, and all 5 pilots, identical, all Mara, different versions, all looking at her, each mouthing the same phrase over and over. "Don't turn." She tried to scream, but no voice came, only a knock from inside the instrument panel. A voice whispered, "This is not your first time." Then the sky inverted. The sea rose, the planes vanished, and she was back on the beach, the cabin behind her burning, and in her hand, the photograph still warm. This wasn't a haunting. It was a cycle, and she was inside it now. Flight 19 didn't get lost. It became the loop. And those who find it never leave the same. The photograph burned itself into her palm. Not physically, but psychically. Mara couldn't unsee it, her face in the cockpit of a plane lost in 1945. She wasn't born until 1994. But the pilot staring back knew her, knew everything. She could feel it, not like memory, like recognition. The resonator reactivated, on its own. No switch flipped, no hand touched it. It wanted to turn on the screen, a waveform, pulsing, irregular, not natural, a transmission. But it wasn't radio, it was code. She copied the waveform, ran it through software, through AI, through spectrum filters. Nothing, until she slowed it. Down, More. More. Until it no longer sounded like static. It sounded like language, but backward. She reversed it. And that's when she heard it. The loop must close. The sky remembers. Time is not linear. It echoes. A pause, then coordinates. 28.584 north, 80.807 west, Cape Canaveral. Cape Canaveral, NASA's launch site, the gateway to space, and apparently to something else. She flew there, off the books, at night. But it wasn't the launch pad that called her. It was the old tower, buried under vines and rust, the one not on any map. She broke in. Inside, a single console, a cassette deck, a light bulb, a switch, and a note taped to the side. Handwritten. If you hear them, it's already too late. She flipped the switch. The cassette played. Noise, static. Then a pilot's voice. Flight leader here. Something's wrong. Sun disappeared. Instruments spinning. She knew this. Flight 19's last transmission. But then a second voice, older, slower. She's listening now. She stepped back. The light bulb dimmed, then turned red, then off. Her phone rang. Blocked number, she answered. Silence, then breathing, then her own voice. Don't come here. Click. Everything stopped. No sound, no air. Then, from above, the roar of 5 engines. She looked up. There they were, Flight 19, flying upside down, in a circle. In the exact pattern of the resonator waveform. This wasn't flight. This was a symbol, like a sigil, a lock, a key to something older than war, older than aviation. A blinding flash, then darkness. When she woke, a journal beside her. It wasn't hers. Inside, you decoded it. You opened it. But now you must close it. Time eats its tail. You are the tail. Return to the point of origin. She turned the page. One final phrase. If you find the eye, don't look back. And a symbol. The same spiral as before. But now it was moving. She was being watched, not by satellites, not by people, but by the sky itself. It had a memory, and Mara just triggered it. The sky blinked. That's how it felt. One moment, stars above. The next, a pupil. Watching, huge, celestial, silent. Mara stood frozen. On a launch pad soaked in salt air and memory, the pages in her hand fluttered wildly, not from wind, but from something else, a pressure, a pulse, as if the air itself remembered pain. The resonator sparked to life again. No one touched it. No one needed to. It now knew when to speak, and it whispered with light. A projection spilled into the air. Coordinates, this time over open ocean, the Bermuda Triangle's heart. She boarded the jet, didn't ask permission, didn't leave notes. Somewhere deep inside, she knew this wouldn't be a round trip. The closer she got, the more wrong everything felt. Sky darker than night, clouds moving in reverse, birds hovering mid-air, not flying, frozen. Time was misbehaving. At the precise coordinates, the sea parted, not literally, not yet, but radar disappeared. Altimeter spun, then the water below cracked with light. Like lightning under the waves, a shape rose, metal, old. It was a plane, FT-28, but untouched, unrusted, like it had just been built. And hovering beside it, a massive eye-shaped structure, not human, not designed, organic, mechanical. Both. She landed on the FT-28. The cockpit was empty, but it was on, still running. A journal sat on the seat. This time the cover read, Log 0, the first disappearance. Inside, the pages were blank, until she touched them. Then ink bled through, line by line, forming a message. You are the loop. You are the key. You are the error. A shadow passed overhead. The eye above turned. It focused on her, and inside it, Thousands of faces, some screaming, some staring, all familiar, every pilot from every crash, from every timeline, from her own memories. Suddenly she was standing on sand, then in the air, then underwater. Reality flickered like a dying projector. Voices overlapped. Time isn't broken. We are. Close it before it replays again. It remembers who left. The eye pulsed once, a final wave of heat, and Mara understood. Flight 19 wasn't lost. It was absorbed, not by sea, but by memory, by a force that feeds on unresolved moments. The eye isn't an object, it's a consequence, and it had been feeding for decades. The resonator screamed. Not sound, emotion, terror, and the final message flashed across its screen. She has been chosen to complete the circle. She blinked. Now in the cockpit, hands on the stick, same instruments, same blinking light, radio buzzing, but not alone. Next to her, Taylor, smiling, whispering, "Welcome back, Lieutenant." Then static, then silence, then sky, circling. The loop had restarted. But this time, with Mara inside, the sky no longer shimmered, it shook, like a scream trapped beneath clouds. Mara gripped the yoke of the FT-28, Taylor beside her, or the idea of him. He wasn't breathing, but his eyes tracked her, as if some ancient force had borrowed his shape. Below them, the eye grew wider, spinning, whispering, pulling light inward like a hungry sun. The radio crackled, not with static, but language, in reverse, in riddles, in recognition. 12 before, 1 remains. The loop opened with 5, it closes with blood. To stop it, she must become it. Her hands trembled, 1,000 questions, but only one mattered. Was this all meant to happen? The eye blinked once, and time shattered. Suddenly she was in the hangar, the night before Flight 19 vanished. The men joked, loaded up, unaware of what waited. Mara watched herself, but it wasn't her. It was the woman from the photograph. Same face, different time. Her hands moved with confidence, checking gauges. Then she looked up and locked eyes with Mara, across time, across self. She mouthed one word, run. Then darkness, then ocean. Then she stood inside the eye, a chamber of memory, floating debris, dog tags, maps, photographs, flight manuals, wedding rings, keys with no locks. And in the center, a chair, occupied, her, or a version of her. Eyes shut, hands folded, breathing, as if dreaming the entire war. She stepped forward, and the other Mara opened her eyes. "If you destroy me," she whispered, "you break the loop. But if you join me, it continues." Mara's heart pounded. Was this how the disappearances began? A deal? A choice? To feed the eye in exchange for peace? The chamber quaked. Above, Flight 19 spun in a circle. Below, the water churned in reverse. A decision had to be made. She raised her hand. The two versions of her met palm to palm. Light exploded. Reality bent inward. And the eye screamed. Not in pain. In release. She awoke on the deck of an aircraft carrier. Modern, clean. A soldier stood over her. "You okay, Lieutenant?" She sat up, confused. The eye gone. The sky quiet. Flight 19 missing again. But the resonator sat beside her, intact, screen blinking. One word. Reset. She wasn't in 1945 or 2025. She was in something else, somewhere outside of clocks, where decisions echoed forever. The sea stretched out like glass, no waves, no wind, just silence. But not peace. Not anymore. Mara stood on the deck, alone, no crew, no echo of engines, just the resonator in her hand, humming, softly, like it was breathing. Its screen blinked once, then again. then displayed a message. "You're outside now." She didn't know what that meant, but her bones did. Every cell in her body screamed for context, for gravity, for something real, because this place wasn't Earth anymore. Not exactly. Behind her, the water rippled, but nothing touched it. No boat, no fish, just a pulse. The ocean moved like fabric. And above? The clouds spiraled slowly, not blown by wind, but by intention, as if something beyond the sky had taken interest, something that had been watching since 1945. Mara opened the resonator's panel. Inside were the old crew's logbooks. Flight 19 Taylor, Powers, even her own. Except they were different. Each entry was the same date, different years, and each one ended with, "We flew into a cloud." Then, something opened. She flipped through page after page. It was like every version of this story had been lived, by someone, over and over. Slight changes, same outcome, like a maze with no exit. Just new corridors every time you think you're free. Then she found the last page, unlabeled. Just one sentence. "You are the echo of what they couldn't finish." Her fingers went cold. Was this all predestined? Or was it simply being repeated? A faint whir in the sky. Mara looked up. A plane. One she recognized immediately. FT-28. Again, but this time no pilot, no ghost. It hovered unnaturally, silent, waiting. And then it began to disassemble mid-air, piece by piece, wing by wing, engine, propeller, cockpit. Each part froze in the sky, then rotated, then clicked into alignment, forming a door. Not a mechanical one, but something older, stone-like, covered in markings, ancient, geometric, alive. And at its center? A mirror? But when Mara looked into it, she didn't see herself. She saw the other Mara, the one from the eye, the one that stayed behind, trapped but smiling. "You brought it this far," the voice said. Not her own. Not human, but gentle, familiar. "Now decide, keep flying the loop, or close the sky." And the resonator blinked red for the first time. 2 options, 2 buttons. Record. Erase. Mara's hand hovered. This was it, not just for her, for every voice still lost, every ghost still circling, every truth left half buried beneath salt and time. She pressed one, and everything vanished, everything was white, no sound, no time, just stillness. Mara opened her eyes. She wasn't on a ship, or a base, or even Earth. She stood on an endless plain, a horizon that never curved, a sky that never blinked, and in her hand, the resonator was gone. Instead, she held a feather, black, iridescent, soft as thought itself. A voice whispered, "The loop is memory. Memory is truth, but truth is never whole." She turned, and behind her stood every pilot from Flight 19. Taylor, Powers, Gurnard, even herself. Their eyes glowed faintly, not with light, but with recognition. They weren't lost. They weren't ghosts. They were echoes, reverberations of decisions that had never been resolved. And she had made the final one. Suddenly, she was falling. The sky pulled away. The horizon shattered like glass. The white turned black. And then, she gasped. Breath filled her lungs. Salt hit her tongue. Waves slapped the hull of a fishing boat. An old man shouted, "Hey, you okay? Where the hell did you come from?" Mara looked down. She wore a military flight suit, drenched, torn, on her wrist. The resonator. Dead, but carved on the inside. "You broke the cycle." They brought her to the mainland. She told her story, but no one believed her. No records matched her name. No missions, no squadron, no files. She didn't exist, except one man, a retired airman, handed her a photo. Faded, torn, It showed 5 men in front of a plane, Flight 19, and in the corner, a woman, barely visible, watching them. She wore Mara's face. She left the base and never returned. But some nights, when the wind shifted just right, she'd hear the hum, a distant drone in the clouds, and lights circling, searching. In her home, tucked in a drawer, was the feather, still black, still soft, still humming. And once, before dawn, someone knocked on her door. When she opened it, no one was there, just a single torn map, marked with a red circle over the ocean, the words scribbled beside it. Some secrets don't want to stay buried. Flight 19 was just the beginning. Thank you for joining this journey. If this story moved you, left you haunted, or made you question the skies above, leave a comment, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Because some stories don't end. They wait for someone like you to find the next door and open it. See you in the next mystery.